Good afternoon, Toronto, Canada. Good morning, West Coast America. Good afternoon, Europe, and good night to everyone else. We're here in the World Championship Series for the last remaining quarterfinal. Joining me on the desk is In Control and Todd, who decided, after I gave him a compliment yesterday about how well he looked, decided to just copy me for the day. So happy that you're looking as good as me.
I was wearing it first. Just saying.
That's not an argument, Todd.
It is, though.
You guys are exactly... You know who wore it better, though? Todd did. Todd wore it better.
I don't think so.
Thank you,
You're
Jeff.
right.
Thank you.
Todd, let's take a different approach here. We're pretty similar. You are not on our level. But that's okay.
He's a level above, though.
Is he?
Remember yesterday, Kylar said the other day
Kalaris, come on, get out of here,
I like to believe that I represent buttons better than anybody else. Like, a lot of people wear ties to hide their buttons. Nay, I say. Show off the buttons.
He's a buttoner.
Yeah.
Let's move forward and start talking about the last remaining quarterfinal. And this is a big one, of course. It's TLO versus the reigning champion, Polt. Let's go ahead and talk about TLO first of all. Back-to-back quarterfinal finishes here. Very impressive, considering that TLO, when you look at the European scene and the rest of the world, isn't really looked upon as one of the best players out there, Todd.
Yeah, as much as it's true, he's had a few performances in the past where, you know, he's made a lot of top 4, a lot of top 8s. The problem is the road usually ends there for him, and I'm really worried that this might happen here once again, much like last season. He made round of 8, then 0-3 against Hydra. Now he plays the defending champion. Yeah. It's going to be tough.
I was looking at this, Jeff. He's played in his career. This is his 9th quarterfinal over the years playing StarCraft II. He's only ever advanced from this position twice.
It's tough. It's an incredible stat to get here, because that means he beat really good players to get here. But to advance to the top spot, you got to beat the gods. You got to beat the absolute best. And this stage is tough. Like, I have to imagine TLO has that kind of feel from, like, the movie Gladiator, where, like, they're dragging the carcasses of the other guys that came out, and then they're like, yeah, "You're next, TLO," and he's like banging his sword on his shield, like, "I could do this." And outside is 25 lions. He's like, "Yeah, I've got a chance." It's going to be so tough, but that is what this is about. Is that storyline, like Claire's has been talking about backstage. Yeah. In order for TLO to be the people's champion, to rise above, he's going to have to make it past this brick wall, this Polt, and he's done it before.
He's done it before, for the very first time in his career as well. Before the round of 32, he didn't really ever come close to be able to beat Polt. And he did it in the round of 32 in a best of 3. And now he needs to do it again in a best of 5. What's the big differences between best of 3 and best of 5 for TLO?
Usually, you know, in best of 3, you can definitely surprise your opponent a little bit more. You know, he's going to have less room for mistakes. And especially, you just win one map, you know, kind of out of the blue with like a good build order, something like that. You only got one map to win. Whereas best of 5, a comeback can be very realer than in a best of 3. And the same thing applies later on to best of 7.
If there's an advantage for TLO in this series, it's that Polt is extremely close-knit with his builds. If it's a 4-player map, probably CC first. If it's a 1v1 map, probably Barracks Gas, typical, you know, Reaper Scout, that kind of thing. If TLO can reach into his bag of tricks, maybe trips as well, it can work as well, and come out with something clever and put up something against Polt, he can do it that way.
Clever is the wrong word. Mr. Creative.
Mr. Creative. He needs his creative bag.
I'm sorry, you're right. That's absolutely right.
Let's switch focus and let's just buckle down to this. Polt is a 3-time WCS champion. He's the only player in the world to have 3 titles in the WCS. He's looking at a 4th. He's the reigning champion for this. And even though he did lose to TLO in the round of 32, he said it, you brought it up multiple times. He was like, it doesn't matter, we're both through. If we play again, it's going to be easy. When the games get harder and best of 5, best of 7, that's where he's going to shine through. He is absolutely going to be feeling confident going up against TLO again.
He has to. I mean, you know, we saw a little bit of that from Hydra. It was probably him talking about facing Polt. Everyone's kind of overlooking TLO, including probably on some level Polt. These guys have been winning tournaments for, I mean, Polt won that gigantic world championship like 4 years ago now, and he never stopped since then. There was never an era where Polt was absent from the scene. He was always in the top of every tournament, and he is the monster. It's just absolutely amazing. He has to have all the confidence.
And something that we've seen from Polt over multiple years and multiple different tournaments is that when he's weak, and people think he's weak, he comes out still playing excellently. And even when you're actually in a game of StarCraft, and you're like, okay, this is it, Polt's dead. He's finally lost. He buckles down, and somehow turns it around. We saw that this tournament when he played against Marine Lord. Marine Lord was in a position to win, but Polt denied it, and it was remarkable. I don't know how he's able to be so resilient as a player, Todd.
It's really hard to kill. It takes anybody's best effort to beat this guy because he's good in any situation, playing from ahead, playing from behind, and he's actually one of the very few guys that, you know, if he falls behind, knows how to properly do everything to really be able to come back in a series, which is so important, but wasn't quite able to do it in round 32.
He was in the round of 32, but this time he's got
Polt's going to be excited for this series. I feel like that's where he puts those round of 32 talks behind him.
Well, here is Polt, of course, inside the top 16, currently ranked 8th in the system. Thumbs up from Captain America.
43-14. That's a good ladder record, you guys.
Yeah.
That's a great record on the ladder for me. For him, it's WCS. He's like, I've been facing the best, and it's been actually quite easy.
Of course, the Season 1 champion has only lost 2 games this year in the World Championship Series. And he goes up, and this is a tall task. This is not going to be easy for the German player. TLO, of course, represented Germany. Guns are out.
Oh, my God.
Let's see if he can really bring the fight. He said it yesterday when the bracket was drawn. He's done it before. He'll do it again. Obviously not as good-looking stats here, but as he said, he's done it before. Jeff, he can do it again.
Absolutely. And his ZVT looked a lot better yesterday. Of course, that was not Polt he was facing, but another very good Terran.
Yeah.
And he got revenge against the guy that made him look silly on day one. So for TLO, it's mental preparation. He had another night to sleep. He knew exactly who he was playing. Last night, he said, nope, I am not worried. I've got nothing to lose. So for TLO, it's time to put up or shut up.
The map pool, pretty standard. The 2 players getting rid of the worst maps for their race, leaving the 5 that we regularly see in Terran vs. Zerg. Echo and Coda are going to be the first 2 maps, as almost always, the 2 most standardized maps here, Todd. But I don't want to talk about the map strategy right now. I want to talk about TLO strategy. What does TLO need to do to topple the giant that is Polt in order to advance to the semifinals?
He needs to play a very, very clean game. I don't think he's going to be going too crazy, at least most of the time. Maybe in 1 map or 2 he will try something creative, but most of the time I think he's going to try to play it standard, you know, going to the mid to late game without making any mistake, without taking any damages here and there. And if he can do that, he has a serious chance. His crisis management is good. If he can make the game chaotic, he said himself that he's really comfortable in that position. The thing is, so is Polt.
Yeah, that's going to be one way to look at it, and hopefully the German can try it out. He played great yesterday in Eigers, another Terran player. He needs to carry it over to today. Let's find out which shape he's in against the reigning champion.
Thank you very much, guys. We are actually just about ready to jump into this. The game has loaded. The players are ready for an awesome Terran versus Zerg series. I mean, this is going to be either a one-sided or an epic, you know, comeback, you could say, for the underdog here.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for TLO to pull it back. I mean, we did see him already beat Polt. He has a good shot. The biggest thing is here that they're both very, very confident.
Yeah, this is a moment where we can really see, you know, steps being taken to secure that title as being the reigning champion, or if we can make something happen here. We are loaded in Echo in the bottom right. The blue Zerg from Team Liquid, he's TLO!
And in the top left, the reigning champion, we have CM Storm's Polt.
Now, Terran versus Zerg, we look at these 2 players. Polt, the clear favorite coming into this, the reigning champion, looking to secure another berth into the top 4, looking to get to the grand finals. He's already thinking about, you know, from the very beginning of this tournament, what he's going to do as he gets to that top 4. You don't think about losing this early. All the focus for him is reminding everybody why he won Season 1 and why he should win Season 2. TLO, on the other hand, needs to be the guy that comes out and really shows us something special here, because in a straight-up game, the odds are not in his favor.
Yeah, and TLO is definitely the guy to do that. On top of that, you know, Polt is, of course, looking top 2, top 4 at least, bare minimal. But that can, you know, hinder him at the same time, you know, because TLO is a big obstacle. He did lose to him in the group stages. If he you know, doesn't take TLO too seriously, he could all of a sudden be down 1 or 2 games, and then that just gives TLO more confidence. And I feel like you said, it's going to be one-sided or it's going to be a very, very close match. And if TLO can get that confidence in his play, if he can make some moves, he's definitely going to build off of that as the series progresses.
Yeah, I mean, TLO gave off a very confident air going into this match. You know, got to talk to him backstage before he actually came out to play. You know, exuding confidence, but he really needs to believe in himself in that regard as well to make something like this happen. We can already see trying to just hide a couple of his lanes that are out on the map. He did open with a pool first, so the command center being built on the high ground, there's not really too much interaction that will happen at the start of this game just yet. Maybe he tries to catch this Reaper jumping down the cliff, but he's looking to secure some kind of advantage, it would seem, off of a little bit of cleverness here.
Yeah, and he might actually get it. It's going to be really hard to get it off of creep, but he came close.
It was a good effort, you know. That's one of those things that you don't see too many Zerg players try. And if you're in TLO's position, if you have any little tricks, any other tiny things that you try to take advantage of, where you can maybe trick or trap your opponent, this is the series to do it. This is one of the biggest results TLO will have had in a long time if he's able to move past this round. I mean, he's already achieved so much just getting here, but this is where, if he's got anything hidden, he's got to bust it out now.
Yeah, Dr. Dario has been one of those players that has been around since the beta. He knows all the tricks. He's played this game enough, Wings of Liberty, beta, even now in HOTS, where he has had that experience and he's learned everything there is to know about TvZ. He once was himself dabbling in Terran as a random player, so he understands the matchup really, really well. Throughout his career, he's played both sides, and that gives you a certain level of expertise in a specific matchup.
Yeah, and you know, it goes to show a lot that Polt does not want to take risks in this matchup. He built all of his expansions inside of his main base. He hasn't actually secured his natural yet. He's really given a certain level of respect to TLO because he knows that not only is Dario good at playing the standard style, but he has a lot of crazy things that he can bust out to try to catch him off guard. And Polt, as a reigning champion, really the biggest thing is be prepared against everything that you could lose to in the early game, and he can always grind out that long game where he should have that advantage.
Yeah, and that's just going to be the general outlook. Whenever you feel like you're the stronger player, he's going to do a little nifty, trying to block this expansion until the Hellions come. He does pick off the drone. He's going to not lose any units thus far, but it's a small victory. A small victory.
Yeah, and I think you made a really, you know, you were about to go on to a pretty good point there about if you're the player that's, you know, feeling confident, you're the favorite player, your, you know, overall history much better, you're looking for these big moves, and actually managing to slip by here as that Zergling speed's not ready. Polt running in pretty aggressively with these first 4 Hellions, really trying to put the pressure on and set the pace of aggression and saying, hey, I'm the champion, I'm going to make these moves that will pull you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and thus far doing a good job of that. Killing 5 workers isn't the biggest of deal, but it's still enough damage.
Yeah, when you consider that the Zergling speed upgrade is about to complete, he's lost a lot of the Zerglings he has on the map. He also lost drones. You don't want to go back into building Zerglings. You want to have a couple on the map to get that map control, to defend your expansion, and spend all that larva on just rebuilding your workers. And he also, of course, at the same time, delayed the 3rd base a little bit. Meanwhile, Polt, he's just moving into a very standard Terran setup, double upgrades with those engineering bays, getting his barracks as well. We're going to see him play a very straight-up style against TLO.
And I expect to see that for the majority of this series. Polt thinking and knowing he's the better player, already being so standard. He just wants to tell TLO, you know what? I'm going to play you straight up, game 1, and I'm going to crush you. And that's going to be the tempo for the rest of the series.
Yeah, and that's a champion mentality. If Polt is able to pick up that type of momentum, that's the kind of thing that can shake the confidence of someone like TLO, even as an underdog. Believing in yourself gets difficult once you take that first loss, because it reminds you, it's like, okay, well, you know what? I knew this was going to be tough, but picking up a first map win can give a lot of that confidence back to him and really, you know, almost kind of like heavily increase his chances of picking up an additional one, because then he knows that he can do it. He knows that he can take maps off of a champion tier player like Polt. But looking at the setup of this game, everything very, very close. We have the upgrades very close for both players. The 4th hatchery is being taken relatively quickly for TLO. This is a fair move considering that Polt's gone for 3 command centers, but a lot of Terrans versus Zerg does hinge on putting pressure on that 4th base as the Terran.
Yeah, he's going to try to limit these expansions just to make sure that the Zerg doesn't get too out of control, the economy doesn't get too big, especially the gases. Later in the game, Mutalisks are probably going to come into play, and you need to hinder those numbers, as well as banelings and everything else. I expect a pretty normal composition from both players.
Yeah, I mean, the little one, you know, when we look at if one of these players was to do something out of the ordinary, you know, unusual, you know, Polt makes slight tweaks to openings that not many other Terran players will do, but for the most part, he falls back into that same, you know, standard style. We're going to see him play with Marines, Marauders, Medevacs, Widowmines, all that jazz in this series, but TLO could be the one that goes for the big plays. Big Ling Bane pushes without Mutalisks, Roaches as well.
Yeah, Polt's one of those players that really just grinds out efficiency. He'll load up a custom game and just run one build over and over and over again, write down the timings, figure out what's the best way, what to cut. Right now, both players just kind of pushing for position, not too many losses on either side. He's trying to clear up creep and just see what damage he can get done. Dario is on the defensive here. He needs to make sure that he doesn't lose anything. He needs to keep all of his workers alive, and he needs to defend these drops without taking too much damage.
Yeah, so as Polt moves away, he's actually going to spot this fourth base. Now there's a Spine Crawler here, some Banelings being made. Now this is a big target for the Terran player. You want to knock this down and prevent them from getting that overwhelming, you know, economy that really allows you to flood out units from all those hatcheries, from all the injects that the Queens will put on. And for TLO to get this fourth base this quickly actually makes it more difficult to break because of the creep spread, and maybe that's what he needs to take down a champion.
Yeah, he needs the vision, he needs the control, and as a Terran player, as you see that creep push out across the map, it becomes a scarier and scarier threat, just knowing that you can't be as aggressive as you want to be, and you're always risking stepping on that purple goo.
Yeah, and we can even see already, you know, some of these drops that are trying to get in place, these pushes for Polt. This is where Polt excels. He's trying to really divide the little one's attention, see if he can pull some of the Lings here. Does he have enough to actually clean up this drop? It seems that he has to bring even more forces, and at the same time, there's not that many Banelings here to actually defend the fourth base. The Spine Crawler is going to buy some time, but this is a very crucial moment for TLO as Polt is starting to apply pressure at multiple points.
Yeah, it looks like TLO is eventually going to be able to clean up, but he did take a good amount of damage. Baneling's connecting, but that Marauder barely making out, being a much tankier unit than the Marine.
Yeah, the Banelings don't do that extra damage to the Marauder, so just leaving that behind, just showing, you know, those are those tiny things that let you know how good someone like Polt is, that they bring up, you know, the most vulnerable units, but they leave just that little bit behind that if you're not paying as close attention as TLO, you lose out on quite a few very expensive and very important Banelings.
Yeah, but we're going to see it go a little back and forth. Mutalisk are soon to be out. TLO just has to hold on a little bit longer, and then he will have more opportunity to clean these up. As of right now, those Medevacs add always a very safe retreat for Polt. When the Mutalisks come out, it's not as safe. He's going to be taking more losses.
Yeah, and we still hear he's trying to spread himself out. He has the Widowmine placed back off creep, so he can always try to run away. And that, you know, as you move off creep, those units move a little bit slower. They're going to clump up a little more easily. They spread out some more slowly. And this is all Polt really wants to do, is just shut down this fourth base. At the same time, TLO going for a counterattack to actually hit some of the units that are coming in. The reinforcements, but the Widowmines get some decent shots. With no more Banelings left, the Marines will force the Mutalisks back.
Yeah, TLO losing his Overseer there. Couldn't clean up the Widowmines. A very nifty pick off by Polt. And we're just seeing him pull slightly ahead in supply here. It's 122 to 154, but it seems like Polt is just controlling the tempo of this game overall, always on the aggressive, and TLO trying to defend, but losing a good amount of units thus far.
Yeah, if there's one thing that Polt's done a good job of, he hasn't overextended himself. He knows that he just needs to play this straight up game, and he can continue to make that champion level, you know, control, just pull him forward. He doesn't, every time there's going to be a fight, he just picks up and backs off.
Yeah, and he's allowed to do that because Dario doesn't really have an overwhelming force. He doesn't have that force that can chase down Medevacs and keep pushing in. Polt still has a superior army, and it looks like he's just going to get pushed back here. He doesn't really have enough Mutalisks to defend this bio push. He doesn't have enough Banelings. He doesn't even have enough Zerglings at this point.
Yeah, and without Banelings on the map, the Marines are not going to be stopped. The Widowmine's even cleaning house on these Zerglings. GG's called. Polt, the reigning champion, secures game one in this best of five in a dominating fashion.
Yeah, Polt running a clinic on TLO right now, just so surgical. Everything very crisp, solid play from Polt, showing why he is a reigning champion and trying to tell TLO, you know what? You might have beat me in the round of 32, but this is the final. This is top 8, and I'm looking at top 4, top 2. I'm not even looking at you right now.
Yeah, if we just think about the way that, the mentality with the game was approached, TLO comes in confidently, tries to play standard, but Polt he does everything that he needs to do without being overly fancy. A drop at this pace, maybe he gets cleaned up, not the biggest deal. What he's trying to do is just create a bit of space for his other counterattacks, and we saw that as he puts pressure on multiple fronts. That's where being able to do this while still macroing back at home, continuing to build units, building supply depots, building SCVs, those are what allow you to gain an advantage, because TLO will focus so heavily on defending these pushes that he can't, advance forward anywhere else.
Yeah, that little moment we saw at the end, as we were talking about, the Marauder tanking 3 banelings, being picked up, being dropped back, being able to heal. It's just about creating uneven opportunities. Polt can decide. He can choose to drop heavily in the main, in the natural, attack the third. He always has the choice to disengage. TLO does not at all. He is forced into battles, and Polt is just making great decisions of where those engagements are happening right now.
Yeah, and you look back at the strategy, we're going to Coda next, very similar setup of map, but he went for that very heavy economic strategy with the early upgrades. We saw they were very close together despite the double engineering bay being so quick for Polt. But without that Mutalisk control, without having that big overwhelming force that you talked about, Polt took battles on his own terms, and that's what a top-tier Terran does. They recognize that they can't be chased in certain scenarios, and that with only ground forces, that option to lift into the medevacs, it's a free way to escape any fight where the Zerg could actually defeat you.
Yeah, TLO was, I feel like he was right on the cusp of just stabilizing in that game. If he would have gotten the Mutalisk out, gotten, a few more good Baneling hits, all of a sudden it would have been a very close game. He did have 4 bases. He just needed to stabilize, especially with that type of greedy opening.
Yeah, you even think about just a couple of those Banelings being there to help clean up that drop. Could have freed up so much of his supply before, but that was then, and now it is time for game number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to Coda. As you can see, our first player in the top left position, currently up 1-0. Give a cheer for CF Stars Polt!
And in the bottom right, it will be TLO!
If TLO wants to come in here as the underdog in this match, as someone who's been really picking things up lately, this is a map that gives him the opportunity to get that momentum back. For Polt, getting this next victory just, it's expected. It's expected, exactly.
It's expected at this point. Yeah, I would love to see a TLO come back. He's been kind of overshadowed, to be honest, from the other Team Liquid boys. Bunny, Snoot, these are guys that have been top 4ers. TLO was that at one point, and I'm sure he wants to be that again. He's been playing StarCraft II for a while, and he is starting to get back into that old form, and this is where he needs to decide. Am I going to be that champion? Am I going to be the guy that stands up against the Koreans? Or am I going to be, that second tier, Team Liquid player or Western player in general?
And you can take that way of looking at this match for TLO and run it across everybody else that's competed in this tournament. The other side of the bracket, we're going to have a non-Korean player in the finals of this tournament. TLO has this opportunity to make that big miracle play and try to make a big upset here against the former champion. And of course, for Polt, for him, this is what he does. He comes in here, he takes out all these guys that are trying to make these upsets happen, and that just comes from being a very solid player. You can't be a champion without being consistent. It's very difficult to come across these tournaments, to pick up as many WCS titles as someone like Polt has, and of course, if for the purposes of this season, get those WCS points that you need so that you can continue to compete at the highest level, moving forward to things like the global finals.
Yeah, and everybody expects Polt to be there, as we said. TLO, he's not, he is an underdog in this match, but we've seen that he's able to beat Polt already. He can do it again, but he needs to relax, and he needs to be able to play his top game. Because last series, or last game, he showed like he was willing to take risks with those 4 Zerglings, trying to be, creative and pick off an early Reaper. He tried to do that with the quick 4th hatchery, and he was almost able to pull it off, but not quite. And he needs to be able to, tie up those loose ends if he wants a chance against Polt. Because going into a mid-late game on even or disadvantaged terms, he's going to fall apart, I feel.
Yeah, and that's where Terran versus Zerg becomes so tricky as that 4th base. But already, TLO getting a very nice grab at the start of this game. killing that Reaper. We saw in the last game, Polt make great use of the Reaper with his first 2 Hellions to delay the third base, to run into the natural, to run into the main, and actually kill some drones. So already, you combine that with the fact that Polt has built his command center in the high ground inside of his main base once again. He's showing a lot of respect to TLO, but now TLO is feeling, okay, it's like, oh, I actually got something that's pretty nice here at the start of the game. You know, I've denied him a lot of vision, a lot of map awareness. He doesn't know where my Zerglings are.
Yeah, and a move like that, I mean, it's like sports, you know? He comes up, it's one-on-one situation. If you pull your drones, you don't get that Reaper. You look like a fool a little bit. You wasted all that time. But if you do pick it off, if you can defend, you know, it's like someone trying to dribble through your legs. Yeah. And then you actually stop it. They look foolish, and now TLO looks pretty solid here. I mean, that's not a huge victory, but right now in the mental game, he's very happy, and it provides him like a lot of tempo going in, you know, to these early stages.
You look at someone like TLO, surely that happens, you know, in a reasonable number of the games he'll play on ladder, but not against championship tier players like Polt. And you're able to get something like that. It's a mental edge where you're thinking, okay, you know, he is human. He's going to make these mistakes. All I need to do is focus on where else Polt is going to slip up so I can find or create these opportunities. Polt this game is changing it up, though. We're seeing him go for a much quicker starport. That means a later third command center, means later upgrades, later stim, but a focus on what looks to be a very quick Marine drop, complemented by a Hellion push at the front. He could also throw an Armory into this. It's an aggressive push. The big thing that we're looking to see is what happens as Polt's medevac reaches the other side of the map with those Marines.
And it seems like Dario's had a good amount of scouting. He should kind of feel out where this game's at, especially with those quick Hellions. It's going to be up to him to recognize the build. As soon as you recognize the build, it's easy to defend it. But whether he can fully identify what's coming, it's harder to say.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that TLO would be looking for, you know, with an Overlord in his base is there a third command center somewhere? Are there engineering bays on the map? Is there a second gas in the main? So all of a sudden, all these things start to add up, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, where, you know, if he has that many Marines early on, maybe he didn't stop to build a tech lab. So suddenly you're thinking to yourself, where does that mean the gas went? And all these possible options come up for TLO. He's getting a spine crawler just in case. He's building some extra Zerglings just in case. The Overlord comes in and he sees, you know, something that Polt does relatively often, but can he actually defend the big drop? His Zergling's already in place. He caught an inkling of this, and he's made the right moves to set himself up to stop this attack.
Yeah, beautiful defense thus far. He needs to come back and defend these Marines, because as soon as they get dropped, it's harder to defend. It looks like he's going to ferry in these Hellions, actually, and now this push becomes a little bit more formidable.
Yeah, the Hellions are going to do a great job against the Lynx. The Queens come up. Oh, KK Transfuse being thrown as well. And the Queens, they always want to get that medevac, cut off the escape route so that these units cannot escape. And they actually pick off most of the Marines. The Hellions get caught by the ramp. They're still going to kill a good number of these Zerglings, but what TLO really wants to do is avoid that economic loss that he took in the last game, that early economic hit. Still, just 2 Hellions left. He's got a few more of these Queens, starts the Spire. Polt's going to see that, but for all intents and purposes, this is a very well-defended push by TLO.
Yeah, no economical damage. That's the most important key here. Very great defense, Dario. Very good. And overall, it was just a great read from TLO. StarCraft II is always going to be a game of incomplete information, especially at the highest level. There's going to be missing pieces. You can kind of guess. You can run percentages in your head. Like, this is what I think he's doing. This is the 20% chance of this, 30% of that, and, you know, a 50% chance of that. And Dario actually calculated that very well, and he knew what was coming, had his Zerglings in place, and once again, just great play by TLO. But now we're getting into the mid game, we're getting into the late game, and as the game goes longer, I feel like Polt is going to get stronger and stronger.
Yeah, so we take that into account. TLO had that confident opening. You know, he grabs the Reaper very early on. Then the big push from Polt comes with all the Hellions, the medevac, those Marines. He shuts it down. He doesn't lose any economy to it. Now, Polt is going to continue to pressure with these Hellions, but TLO, it's very important to note that he hasn't actually gone for any upgrades. He hasn't gone for any evolution chambers. He's simply going for very fast Spire tech. So what he's looking to do is make a big control play. He's trying to use his confidence to help him in focusing on his micro so that he can create more opportunities against this championship tier player.
This is
using
scary.
His mutas.
This is scary, though. Right now, he doesn't really have that many units, and there's a lot of drones out there.
Hellions are going to run straight up that main base ramp. Now, the Zerglings, of course, do not creep all over the main area, so the Hellions can have a little bit more wiggle room here. A lot of them are very low on hit points, but, you know, he's killed about 4 drones. TLO is still up 11. Considering that he's going for a very fast Mutalisk, it's not the end of the world. A few more of these drones actually get picked off as they were pulled, but, well, yeah, definitely, okay, well, now he knows about the Mutalisk, but that was a little bit close to losing a lot of workers.
Yes, very close indeed, but overall, great control. I mean, realistically, he was always going to lose workers there. He minimalized the damage, only lost 9, and now all of a sudden, instead of always being on the defensive for the first time in this series, TLO is actually going to have control of this game and be able to rely on his macro.
Yeah, and this game has actually taken a very interesting turn as the third command center has only just begun for Polt. So actually, as TLO saturates this third base, Polt is in a position where he's actually committed himself to needing to do a lot of damage despite those upgrades, because the economy will scale so much faster for TLO, and I love this. Catching these reinforcements with how late this third command center is, if Polt takes damage from the mutas or loses this army, he doesn't have that third orbital to fall back on for economy, so he's taking his, his championship tier confidence in trying to actually get a lot of damage done to TLO, recognizing that he's playing with low number of units.
This Widowmine going to do a good amount of damage, though. A lot of these Mutalisks are really low. He needs to try to clean up this infantry push. If he can clean up this infantry push, he'll be in good shape, but right now he's taking a lot of damage.
And he wants to move in with everything at once. He wants to pick off the medevacs with the mutas, but those Marines in the bottom are going to jump in once again. And, you mentioned those Widow Mines. They don't need to kill all the mutas, but you take out one here, another there, the reinforcement Marines kill a muta. Suddenly you don't have enough damage output to kill those medevacs before Polt's army can escape. And actually, there's no overseer here, so these Widow Mines can actually fire again on TLO's army. Oh boy. Killing a few Lings here, gets one of the Banelings, not the end of the world, but now the detection is in place. Polt's third command center is done, so he's going to start to slowly recover that economy difference, and of course, because he killed drones this game, it's not really that bad for him. It really comes down now to, can TLO stop this pressure?
Yeah, and already losing so many of his Banelings, this is a big problem for TLO. A little miss micro from him. He's going to have a hard time. He's trying to buy time. He's trying to pull Polt back into his own defensive position, but Polt very confident, pushes in, and TLO, GG's out.
Yeah, Polt takes a 2-0 lead in this best of 5. The TLO going for a strategy that relied on getting momentum with those Mutalisks after defending the push, but having those upgrades for Polt, even with the late third base, still helped so much in those straight-up fights. Definitely a better game from the little one, but still, you got to take it to the next level if you want to take down a champion when you're playing here in the top 8 of the World Championship Series.
Yeah, he was playing really well up until that push hit, and then it seemed like he really didn't expect it to come that early almost. He was picking off units, he was doing everything he could, but he didn't have the units that he needed 20, 30 seconds before. If he had a few Banelings, if he was in position, he could have really defended this push. And now the secondary push follows up, and there's just so much damage here.
Yeah, as a Terran player, it's very important when you see these fast Mutalist plays to always try to capitalize on the fact that that's a lot of gas. They don't usually have as many Banelings. They don't have the upgrades. And Polt, with that information, as a champion who's been in these scenarios dozens of times, he knows that the most opportune moment to move out was when he saw the Mutalisks, because there can't be much else. And hey, Marines, they're pretty damn good against Mutalisks.
Yeah, and more importantly, it was a big factor that he left those Widow Mines behind in between the natural and the third. Knowing that the Mutalisks are on the other side of the map, knowing that the Banelings are not at the third, he can set up that trap, and as they come through, he's just going to pick off a lot of units with the Widow Mines. He lowered the Mutalisk's health, killed one, and then picked off a Baneling as well. And then, all of a sudden, when you only have, 1 or 2 Banelings, losing one of those Banelings is a big deal, and the Marines did a good amount of damage there.
Yeah, it's nice to get 1 Baneling detonation, but you need 2 to clear out all those Marines, especially when they're being healed by those medevacs. Game number 3 will be played out on Cactus Valley. You have a big map, 4-player spawns. Neither player, you're not going to be able to pick your strategy knowing where the other one has started the game.
Yeah, and hopefully that will play into Dario's favor. How do you feel, TvZ?
I mean, this is going to be a pretty tricky map for Polt if TLO gets that creep spread with all the spread out bases. This is an opportunity now for this man. He has to win 3 games in a row to bring it back. Can he do it in the top left? The red Zerg. He's liquid. TLO!
And in the bottom left, representing Korea, the reigning champion, up 2-0, it is CM Storm's Polt. Just looks like another day in the office for Polt.
The thing about being a championship tier player who's won WCS several times, who's won tournaments across the globe, is Polt knows that when he commits to a big attack like that in that last game, in game number 2, he recognizes, and he's been in a scenario where he's failed to do damage, and he knows how to properly follow up. He knows what the weaknesses of his build is, and he knows how to capitalize on even the slightest bit of information. He saw those Mutalisks at the very end, and he saw an opportunity. Okay, I just get out a good number of Marines, and I can push out. He won't have Banelings to defend. Whereas TLO, oftentimes what you're hoping for is you want to contain the Terran, lock them in their base, keep them from moving out, and that's how you really take advantage of it. You keep them on 2 bases, you starve them, you pick off add-ons here, pick off workers there, but that's what makes Polt a champion. He does not fall to the those strategies where you're really trying to catch somebody, lock him in.
Yeah, I feel like TLO, I mean, he understands the fact that Polt has been the aggressor for the most of this series, especially in that first game. He picked a great build. I liked the build. It gave him a lot of tempo in the game. He had control, but Polt seemed very unfazed. He knew there was Mutalisk on the map. He knew, I could lose a lot of things back home, but I'm willing to trade with this guy. Like, if I have to, I'm going to go across the map. I'm going to have my small force. He can have his Mutalisk. He can attack me. I'm not backing down. This is a mental game. I'm going to be attacking you. I'm going to force you to come back and defend. And then on top of that, you're going to run into my trap. You're going to lose units, and I'm going to grow stronger and stronger. And then I'm just going to beat you down a minute or 2 later.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see the change between game 1 and 2. We had those, the attempt to get the Reaper with the early Zerglings, and that third base being denied. In game number 2, he got the third base pretty quickly. He took care of the Reaper without trouble. He took care of the follow-up attack without trouble. Is TLO's confidence grown enough for him to take it just up 1 more notch? Is 1 more notch even enough? Is the big question right now for our German Zerg.
As a pro, I think it's more of I'm down 2-0. I need to it doesn't matter anymore. I've tried both games. I've done decently, but at this point, I need to have no fear. I just need to play my best. The nerves have shaken off. For me, losing a game is almost easier to play than winning the first game because you're expected to just lose at this point. And TLO has that in his corner, We talk about players all the time, where they don't have expectations. It's easier for them to play without those nerves, that anxiety, knowing that you have to fulfill some goal that other people have set for you. Now being 0-2, he has nothing to lose at this point. He needs 3 games in a row. That gives us, crazy confidence almost.
3 games in a row against the guy that won Season 1 of the World Championship Series. No small feat, to say the least, as the little one gets that Zergling speed early once again. Polt still showing respect. He still expands inside of his main. He does not want to be at risk to any early aggressive play, but he also got in early with the Reaper to see that that's not really something that he has to worry about. So for TLO, he's still mining gas. He could go for a quick lair again. We could see a very fast 2 evolution chamber where he has with another late third. There's a good number of options available. And that's what this Reaper is here to make sure that, Polt sees enough that he can defend it with his experience, with his skill.
Yeah, and Polt's using that Reaper very, very well so far. Scouting everything, picking up a creep tumor, picking off a drone, picking off some Zerglings. Just seems like he's really on top of his play today. And it just seems like, TLO beat this guy. He's already done it. He knows he can do that. But this is a different beast. Polt here, in front of a large crowd, in the finals. That's a completely different monster.
Yeah, when you really look at the results of these 2 players, everything that they've managed to accomplish in the last year or 2 of StarCraft in the World Championship Series, the difference between this match and that round of 32 match is that Polt usually wins when he gets this far. He's got the experience, and he knows that he can do this. This is a scenario where, this is Polt's turf, and he's going to continue to bring this pressure. He's really just trying to force mistakes out of TLO.
Yeah, and using this aggressiveness, he actually gets a good scout too. Like, he knows how many units he's on. There's no third base, obviously, and he's just keeping him contained. Even creep. TLO hasn't even started to spread, where in the last 2 games, he actually had a decent amount by this point. Yeah. And now he doesn't even have 1 creep tuber down yet, and it looks like he's going to be going for that early Spire again and using actually Overlords for that small little creep bonus.
Yeah, I mean, the Lings are going to try to push these Hellions back, but Polt, by seeing the Overlord dropping creep, already knows there's a lair. You saw the gas and the natural. If you're taking all this gas, if you have a lair, what can you realistically do with it? Well, it's unlikely, that we'll see a Nidus play. It's not super popular. There's an Overlord near the main base, but we already know, there's a Spire on the way. It's going to be Mutalisks again, and Polt has a very limited amount of barracks production. If this drop were to be shut down, if the Mutalisks get out in time, there is a small window for a counterattack. That's what TLO has to be looking for. The big focus right now is defending until the Mutalisks come out. If TLO can do that, he'll at least have the opportunity to try to go back across the map and make something happen.
Yeah, this defense is going to be really hard, especially with these Hellbats. They're just such tanky, in-your-face units. He has a good amount of Zerglings as is, and he's going to need this Queens to back it up.
I mean, the Hellbats represent a lot of damage, and without a Baneling Nest, all that gas invested, TLO going for a build where he could try to really win with just a heavy amount of micro. He doesn't have the army he needs to fight this yet. The Spire is done now, but all of his larvae have been spent on Zerglings. He's going to start Mutalisks. He has more gas and minerals. He can't afford to build Mutalisks. And Polt, moving forward once again with a championship tier stride into that natural mineral line, is killing absolutely everything. The Queens are forced to retreat. The Mutalisks are going to come out, but there will not be enough of them to kill this in time to stop Polt from dealing game-winning damage.
Yeah, and the reigning champion once again.
GG, Polt takes the 3-0 and moves on in the World Championship Series to face Hydra.
It just seems as time goes on, he gets stronger and stronger. Polt, what a machine.
Done an absolutely fantastic job. Let's hear what Polt has to say with Chobra on the main stage.
All right, the defending champion lives on. Polt goes on to the semifinals. And yesterday, when we saw the matchup decided, TLO said, I beat him in the round of 32. I can do it again. Were you worried at all?
Not at all. I mean, in the last season, when we think about, I beat 4GG, Bunny, and Hydra, but all of them beat me before. And if in the case of Hydra, he beat me in the qualifiers and round of 16, but it didn't matter at all. I only win when it matters.
Oh, well, you definitely won today, and it mattered a lot. Now, as the defending champion, we were just talking about it, this trophy obviously feels very much like yours. How much do you want? Do you want to touch it? Do you want to go ahead and touch the trophy right now? It's a little early.
Can I?
I don't know. It's a little early. But you're not far from it, though. If you win this weekend, you can lift that up again. Now, in your matchup going into the semifinals, again, that's another rematch. Like you just said, you win when it matters. So does that apply again against Hydra? You're just going to win because you need to go to that final and become the champion?
I think everyone knows the result already.
All right, well, Polt saying, you know, it's pretty much all decided in this weekend. Well, you're super confident. I think everyone, we just can't wait to watch your match come in the semifinals, of course, after the first one. But congratulations once again here on this stage. Moving on to the semifinals of the WCS Season 2 Finals.
And just like that, in a very fast couple of brief hours, we have only 4 players remaining. The quarterfinals, not close at all.
This was a culling. This was a slaying of dragons, as Rotterdam would say. I mean, this was the round where we had a lot of build-up, and it's our job to be like, you know, like, wow, this is gonna be super amazing, and then actually 15 minutes later, it's like Chobra's asking if he wants to touch his trophy on stage. Like,
it was a complete shutdown. But
yeah, go ahead.
Todd, like, every single match. I mean, the one map that went in favor of the loser was the Jaedong series, which was still one-sided.
Yeah, this series made me wonder what's happening in round 32, really, because this was like 2 different players than what we saw last time, really.
But I like what Polt said, and he touched on that, because that's been, people have been bringing that up all weekend long, justifiably so. Those games were awesome, and that is the round of 32, where coming in first is actually kind of a nice thing. But he was like, no, I win when it matters. And if you look back in Polt's career, he's had those moments where people are like, well, he dropped a map here, he lost a little bit there, not looking as good, but then round of 8, round of 4, round of 2, nah. Round of 2 is a silly way to call it.
He looks absolutely fantastic there. Let's take a look at the bracket, and we have 4 players remaining. They've each earned themselves an extra $2,000. Minimum banked is $10,000 for each of the 4 last players. And of course, the juicy WCS points keep bringing themselves in. But look at this top 4. 3 out of the 4 players are the same players that we had in the Season 1 finals. Yeah. Incredible consistency from Polt, Hydra, and once again, Bunny. But the newcomer is, instead of Showtime, Lilbo, Todd.
Yeah, that's interesting to see, you know, how things change. And Showtime, you know, for some time. He even like had a big slump behind his WCS performance, and now Lilbo, definitely the new Protoss kid on the block, so to speak. At the same time, it's really cool to see that all the 3 races are represented here, and this time though, the finalists from the previous season, they meet in the semifinals here.
Yes, that's a massive game here. I mean, both of them anticipated as soon as the round of 8 came out, but Season 1 champion versus Season 1 finalist, the big rematch from the Grand Finals in Season 1. I mean, we can talk a lot about it later on, but do you see which side could potentially come out?
I think Hydra's had the more performance, or the more amazing performance so far. I think Polt's mostly taken care of business. I feel like in each match, people are like, well, Polt maybe could, but no, he's been the favorite by a quite large margin. I think you could say the same or similar for Hydra, but he's had closer competition. He himself said Jaedong was a big threat to him, and then he put that down pretty hard. I would give the edge to Hydra, I think.
I think a lot of people will be doing that as well. Todd, great to see a Frenchman and a Dane in the first semi-finals, and you could have, like we mentioned, a French player in the finals, and it would be in the history of WCS. We've talked about having a European in the finals, but to have the European players 2 times both being French.
You must be so proud.
So proud.
Your people are so proud.
I am already so proud, and
I can see you're so proud.
I'm sure the commentators too on the French stream are losing it completely. There's a lot of French people following this. It's a great story, to be honest. You know,
guys
this
are
guy.
proud people.
We got it, Jeff. Lilbo has been practicing a lot for a long time, and it's finally paying off.
Yeah, it's good to see, and that's going to be our
what it comes down to.
We actually, I just realized we have an American, a British, and a Frenchman up here. And I mean, look at where we've come so far from the past, you know?
What was the past?
The past.
The history.
StarCraft II is international.
That's right. It's
And
unifying
every
people.
nationality is welcome and can do well in it.
Protoss, French, British, we're all together in this.
And of course, Canada! Boys, it is time for the semi-finals, but before we get into that, people of Toronto in control went around the city again, this time with a picture of Kalaris.
Oh, God. How's it going, everybody? This is In Control.